Okay, we're closing up to 7 o'clock. I'm going to call this meeting of the Community Choice Aggregation Committee to order. As Paul pointed out, the senior council member on on it, I'm going to be the acting chair until we can get through the first couple of things in the agenda. You have an agenda in front of you. What I think we want to do is introduce ourselves and who all is here, just so that everybody can tell what's going on. We don't have our nameplates or anything. So my name's Tom Koenig. I'm on the town council and have been for quite a few years, and have been in town since '91. So I'm still a newbie, but compared to some, but and anyway, and have a lot of interest in the idea of the Energy Aggregation Committee. Why don't we go your way?
I'm Wendy Thomas, and I moved
Turn your
here.
mic on.
I'm Wendy Thomas, and I moved here in '91 too. I didn't realize. Huh. Seems like. Anyway, I'm one of the state reps for the town of Merrimack. I also sit on Science, Technology, and Energy. I'm active in the Merrimack Energy Efficiency Energy Committee, not Energy Efficiency, but the Merrimack Energy Committee. And that's about it.
Andy Hunter, I'm a town councilor here in Merrimack. Been in town for about 10 years now. 3 years on the town council. And like Tom, I'm very interested in getting this program up and going for Merrimack.
I'm Janine Nodder. I'm the House Majority Whip. In my 7th term in the House and my 5th term on Science, Technology, and Energy.
You turn your mic on. Just
Mary Beth Raven. I'm a 32-year resident of Merrimack, and I am a member of the Merrimack Energy Committee, along with several other people who are here tonight.
I am Bart Frommuth. I'm with Freedom Energy Logistics. We offer community choice aggregation consulting services here in the state of New Hampshire.
I'm Stuart Ormsby. I'm here with Bart. I'm with Colonial Power Group, and looking forward to assisting this committee in the town on a program.
Hi, I'm Leo Lavalette. I'm the Deputy DPW Director in Environmental, and also a Merrimack resident. Not as long as these guys, though.
Excuse me, I'm Karen Pontos. I'm a resident, and I'm on the Merrimack Energy Committee also, and interested in community aggregation.
Paul McCallie, I'm the town manager for the town of Merrimack.
okay. And just to be clear, Paul, Andy, and I are. Paul is a town employee rep. Andy and I are town council reps, and Janine and Wendy have been asked to join the committee as public members. So there's a 5-person committee here, and then we have the rest of your guests here tonight. Okay, just to clarify who's doing what and the purpose of this meeting. As before we get started or even approach any questions, we ought to come up with a chair and secretary or vice chair. Secretary. Just 2 positions to kind of keep the committee going if there's one of us gets sick or something like that. So does anybody have any thoughts or interest in the selection of the chair?
I would like to nominate Tom Koenig for chair.
Okay.
Second.
Yeah, nominations for chair. Don't need seconds, but thank you. Is anybody else interested in being the chair? Seeing none. We'll accept it that way.
Well done, well done.
So we'll cast one vote for chair. Pardon?
Just got to take a vote.
Formalize a vote? Okay, amongst the
five of
committee.
us, yeah.
We'll take a vote on Tom Koenig for chair of the committee. All those in favor say aye. Aye. And opposed and abstaining. I'll abstain. That's 4-1. 4-0-1 for myself to be chair. So we need a second secretary or whatever. Does anybody have any interest in that position?
Secretary is the minute taker.
Is the minute taker?
Yeah.
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 But we have the tape, so we could always go back to that theoretically, so it's not a big deal. We do need to get minutes turned in and stuff like that, right?
Yes, we do. Oops. Yes, we do. Not used.
Anybody willing to do that position? Or stand in the event that I can't make it because I'm sick or something?
I'll do it if
Well-
nobody else wants it.
Okay,
I nominate Paul McCallie for secretary. Someone's
good.
got to
And
do the
anybody else?
nominations.
nobody else? Nobody's looking for that. We'll take a vote on that. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? Paul abstains, so that's a 4-0-1 for Paul to be the secretary.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you very much.
Saw my minutes before. Just wait.
Since you're doing a good job of scribbling down stuff there anyway. Okay, so introduction of what the CAC program is. I think we've talked about it amongst ourselves, especially when we were interviewing, and I suspect everybody here in the room is fairly familiar with what the CAC is. For the sake of the public, the Community Choice Aggregation Committee is an effort to put together a program along with New Hampshire state law that allows us to, as a community, aggregate all of the residences together and purchase energy under a plan approved by the PUC. And everybody in town would, if they approve the concept at a town meeting, would be opted in unless they choose to opt out. And everybody in town would have a 30-day period to opt out. This is for residential usage. It's not for commercial usage. And the people that are already on a third-party supplier, not Eversource, would not be included by default, but they could opt in if they chose to leave their current supplier and move into the community aggregation program. Does that summarize it well enough? Does anybody want to add any thoughts to that, or?
If I may add one detail, you mentioned that it'd be targeting residential customers, and I think those are sort of the primary beneficiaries, although the program would be open to businesses in town as well.
Would it? Okay.
Yeah.
I was under the impression that businesses were not allowed, that it was for retail, not commercial.
Yeah, no, I think strictly by statute, any consumer that's currently taking supply from the utility, which would include businesses, have to be eligible to participate in the program.
Oh, great. There's no problem with that. It just increases the aggregation, right? So that's a good thing. Any other thoughts, Janine?
Yes, thank you. Okay, now I got it. We had talked about solar panels before. If people have solar panels, does that disqualify
There
them?
are things in the law that if the energy service that we would contract with, whatever that might be, doesn't have any way to pay for net metering. So if you generate more energy than you use, you can't be in the program because they can't pay you back. If you want to get paid back, you'd have to stay with Eversource as your supplier.
What if, follow up?
Sure.
Right. What if a resident has solar panels just as a supplement and they never use it all?
I mean, so the issue is not that because they have solar panels, they can't get involved. It's that if they have solar panels that provides more power than they use throughout the year, then they're not going to get paid back for any use that they meter it out to the system. So they can go ahead and use their solar panels and they can buy whatever incremental amounts they need through the aggregation, but they're not going to get reimbursed for any excess amount over the month or year because the supplier won't be doing that. They would have to work with Eversource directly if they thought they were going to get paid back for energy supplied to the grid. And please, Bart,
Thank you,
help
Chair.
me make that clearer.
Yeah, the thing that we want to accomplish there is not put owners, residents with solar panels behind the meter into our opt-out program. They would be in our opt-in program, and that would give us an opportunity to talk to those homeowners when making that decision to find out if they do in fact have exports. So anybody that's got solar panels on the roof that's not exporting would be fine, but we want to have that conversation so that no one is left worse off for being in the program. And so pulling them out of the opt-out bucket and putting them in the opt-in bucket would be the appropriate way to mitigate that.
And you have a way to do that through Eversource?
Yes, if Eversource's data is clean, that's an issue we're gonna have to talk about, later. But
Yeah.
that has been an issue with some of the early aggregations is getting clean data from Eversource. So
Wendy?
Thank you. Regarding solar panels, if a solar panel field is large enough and it creates enough extra energy to initiate a rec or create a rec, could Freedom purchase those recs from these individuals, or how do you get your recs? I mean, is that an option, I guess, first of all?
yeah, certainly, we'd be able to market our opportunity with the aggregation here in Merrimack, so that if you wanted to buy recs that were associated with a local program directly, if they're willing to sell them to us and their rates are competitive, we could certainly weave that into our all-inclusive power price for the community. So certainly an option. I think one thing just to note is sometimes when you're evaluating these programs, depending upon the locality, the state, the classification of the recs, there's a significant cost associated with that, and that's just one thing that the committee will want to keep in mind when evaluating those options.
Any other questions or comments on what the CAC program is about or what it's trying to accomplish?
Just one more
Bart?
thing. I think just historically, to keep in perspective, that about 85 to 90% of our commercial users in the state have moved away from the utility as the purveyor of their electrons. And the residential market and the small commercial market has been kind of largely left behind. So only about 20% of that market buys from third party right now. So this program was really created, towards your earlier thoughts, towards helping those classes of customer that have been kind of left behind by the competitive marketplace, and being able to bundle to a size that could be competitive and get similar pricing to large commercial users of electricity.
Could you say that percentage again? The number of residential users that have moved away from?
Only about 20% of residential users behind Eversource's territory buy from third-party suppliers themselves, which is almost the exact opposite that you see in the commercial context, where about 80 to 85% are purchasing through third-party supply.
Okay, thank you.
So let me ask you another question. I know the town of Merrimack is already going to a third-party supplier, and I think it's through your program. If Merrimack develops an aggregation committee program and votes for it, could the town of Merrimack's supply be included in this aggregation, or would it continue to be a separate?
So yes, to answer your question, it's absolutely possible for Merrimack to be part of the program. But one of the things that we've seen through all the aggregations that we're running down in Massachusetts is the fact that if the town is going out for like the wastewater treatment facility, for instance, the pricing that the wastewater treatment facility can get on its own, in many cases, because of the load shape, when they're using the fact that it's a zipper load all hours, is likely going to be better than we can do on the aggregation side. There's always a timing aspect of it too, right? So we'd have to have it lined up so that the aggregation and the town offices, the town buildings, if you will, were going out at the same time. But historically, we've seen that our municipalities, their campus load, if you will, still does better on their own in many cases, and that's because you're bundling a lot of residential users together that don't typically have the greatest load shape. So you're still getting an advantage by going in size, because you'll be able to negotiate your own contracts, and the pricing is better than if they went on their own. But we found only a small percentage of our customers take advantage of their own aggregations.
Interesting. Okay. Paul, do you want to help us out with the timeline and important dates issue that we're dealing with right now?
Can I just ask a clarifying
Sure.
question?
Sure.
So can somebody please explain the connection between Freedom and Colonial? Just that we have that for the record, please. Thank you.
Sure. When we were working to get this legislation passed in 2019, we were able to get bipartisan support. There's a lot of excitement around it, and we were originally working just Freedom by ourselves. We were working with the town of Londonderry, and they were one of the first communities to put a data request in with Eversource for the necessary information that we needed to launch their aggregation. Eversource came back and said they had some privacy concerns that were not covered under SB 286, I believe, which was the enabling legislation for community choice aggregation. So this led us to an unofficial docket at the New Hampshire PUC, which lasted the better part of a year. During that time, obviously, COVID happened as well, which significantly slowed down the gears of administration up in Concord. During that time, Stuart and I have been collaborating on a number of things to try to make sure that, when the rules were promulgated and we covered these privacy concerns, that, we had a lot of input from active aggregations down in Massachusetts. Now, keep in mind, in New Hampshire, this has all been theoretical. There was no aggregations in place here in New Hampshire. And so as time went on, we had a group of about 4 or 5 that were dedicated to our community choice aggregation group. And here we are all the way out in 2024, and we just had the first aggregations launched middle of last year. We started talking about collaboration, again, because they had 80 active communities, including the city of Boston. What if we teamed up and brought our combined expertise to serve the New Hampshire marketplace? And so that happened in 2022 is when we combined forces. So we see it as a big advantage for our customers and the marketplace, having someone that's been active for over 10 years with our neighbors, Massachusetts to the south.
Okay. Any other questions on what the program is? Or what it wants to accomplish? For the moment, let's just go ahead and go with just the timeline of where we're at as far as what we'd like to get accomplished this year if we can.
Right. The goal by the town council that was set in November was that we bring a plan forward to the voters in the April 2024 ballot. In doing so, we would need the plan basically approved by the town council by February, and then move forward to deliberative session, which is in March. So working backwards, knowing that we have to hold 2 public hearings, which would probably be, the first one would be around the 8th of February at the earliest. We would have to have the plan lock, stock, and barreled and through the committee by the end of January, with 7 clear days for the vote to be put into paper so people know it. So we'd have to have it done by the 31st so that the town council would be able to have it on February 8th. So that's where we stand right now. Today is the 4th. So we actually only have about 3.5 weeks to get a plan in place and approved if we want to get it on the April 2024 ballot. Because we have to hold those 2 public hearings, and one would be the 8th, and then one would probably follow up probably the next week, the 15th or the 20th, I think is the latest we can hold a public hearing for any warrant articles.
Does the public hearing have to come after the town council approves going forward, or can it be the same day?
It actually have to have, from what I was reading, I thought you needed the public hearings to move it with the town council,
Oh,
At the
before and after?
before and after. Bart, you can correct me on that.
So you need the approval after the public hearing, right?
Yeah, right, that's what we've been doing is town council, once the plan is. Thank you, sorry. Thank you. Yeah. Once the committee is done with the plan, we typically sought vote from the town council before, because the town council will have to vote to approve a warrant article for town meeting, so they approve the plan at the same time.
So that would be the latest we could
Okay.
do that is February 20th.
February 20th?
20th is the last day that we could approve warrant articles for the town, the last day to hold a public hearing.
That makes it enough days in advance of the deliberative session,
Yeah.
which is the 12th or the 5th,
It would be
Or-
the 12th.
somewhere in there.
It'd be the
Tuesday, we
13th,
have
it would be
a
13th,
Thursday, the
the thir-
14th,
13th. We're doing it 13th, Wednesday the 13th,
Wednesday
March
in
13th.
March is Wednesday the 13th.
Yeah,
Okay.
Wednesday, March 13th would be the deliberative session. So the 20th is the last day that we could potentially hold a public hearing by the town council.
So that's like 3 weeks in advance.
Mhm.
Oh, okay. Um, right, so that doesn't give us a lot of time to work with that. What we have before us today is a template for what an aggregation program could look like. I think you also have the copies of the state legislation,
Yes.
and hopefully you've had a chance to see this before. Did you send these out already?
I sent,
Okay.
I didn't send out that came today, that's the
That's
union
today's
leader, but the
article,
other
yeah.
two things I did send out in the email when we scheduled the meeting.
Now, we have been talking to Freedom Electric because they work with the town and whatnot, and they're offering to work as a consultant for us. Um, as you pointed out in this article today, the Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire is another program. How do they relate to you guys at Freedom?
So they're a competitor entity to us. You know, I think the biggest differentiator is that they're more of a regional based group. So it's a collaboration of towns. So there's kind of one thought process, one united kind of front. So they go out together. You give up some of your local identity in doing that. So you're reliant on your size in terms of your voting rights, in terms of, you know, what they decide to do going forward. So if the Community Power Coalition decided that they wanted to do 50% inclusive of renewables, and you were thinking that maybe Merrimack wanted to gear towards more savings, you could get outvoted in that context. The other thing that's another key difference is the Community Power Coalition is also trying to become their own third-party supplier. So with our model, we're going and working with multi-billion-dollar corporations, BP, NG, Constellation. These have large, significant balance sheets, so that if you have any tumult in the marketplace, they have the wherewithal to cover that. And as you have been probably paying attention in the marketplace with everything that happened in the UK and Europe last year with the run-up in September, the big freeze in Texas a few years before that. In Texas, we lost about 29 small and regional suppliers went out of business as a result of just the happenings in a few weeks of market run-up. The UK lost 21 suppliers last fall. So that's a risk that you'd be taking as a result of having someone take title to that power and then repackage it to their residents. Whereas I like to think of ours as insured by these large billion-dollar companies, so that if there is tumult in the marketplace, not only do they have multiple regions throughout the country and internationally, but they also own generation assets. And that's a key distinction, right? So Constellation owns nuclear, they own natural gas, they own solar, they own wind. So when they're losing money on the retail offerings that they're making it back on the wholesale side. So it's kind of a natural hedge in place. CPC&H doesn't have that. They're just a buyer in the marketplace. So if they make an incorrect buy, and you can never be 100% hedged, right? So every purchase that you make, you've got entrants coming into the market. You know, someone moves to Merrimack and says, I'd like to sign up for the program. They can't hedge that ahead of time. So there's always going to be an imbalance, and that imbalance is exposed to the market. And it's typically about 5 to 7% of the portfolio could be subjected to the market whims. And so you have a situation like we had in September of 22, where prices ran up so much so that Eversource was at 48 cents a kilowatt hour. That can leave a pretty significant hole in the budget. So I think that, that being said, they're modeled after California aggregations, which typically are large counties of 3 million, 4 million, 5 million ratepayers all at once. So they have a lot more infrastructure and financial wherewithal. In California, here in New Hampshire, they have 120,000 ratepayers right now. So it's a smaller grouping from which to spread that risk. So, there's an issue there from that standpoint. So.
Yes, Wendy.
I'd also like to point out that a significant difference between Freedom and the Community Aggregation Coalition is that they are nonprofit and you guys are for-profit. And I said that at the town council meeting. And I just think that it bears looking into, because it affects the rates, the performance, and reinvestment into their products. So I think there's a significant difference. Not saying again, that freedom is wrong for Merrimack, but I think that we should look at different options.
Okay. Any, Bart?
I just want to point out that in our agreement, our fees are fixed. So there's no additional profits that are made. Our fees are 1/10 of a cent per kilowatt hour. And that's one thing. And another difference between us and CPCNH is they can't tell you ahead of time in terms of any buy that they're doing, what they're making, what the reserve margins are going to be. They did a procurement last April of 22, and the market at that point in time was at 8 cents a kilowatt hour, and they charged their ratepayers 15 cents a kilowatt hour, which is 7 cents for their reserve margin. So regardless of our for-profit status, their not-for-profit status, our fees are always fixed at 1/10 of a cent per kilowatt hour on the rates that we receive from suppliers. So it's in our opinion, far more forecastable from your standpoint to see what we're making and what you'll be paying for the services that we render to you.
Okay. Any other thoughts from anybody?
Tom.
Paul?
So we're talking 11,000 parcels in town. Roughly, what, about 85 to 10,000 customers that might be eligible. Got to think we have about 8,500 homes, individual residents or condos or apartments. Our apartment buildings, they can do this too if they want.
Yes.
All right. So what are we talking base kilowatt? Like, I know I ran my numbers for a year and it was 7,500 kilowatts for the 13-month period. So what are we talking about total kilowatts for a community of this size?
So bring up my calculator here.
Sorry to
do.
put you on the spot, but you know,
So if we're talking, let's call it 10,000 apartments, homes, we'll say the average use is probably about 750 kilowatt hours a month.
okay.
All right. So let's see, times 12. We're talking about 90 million kilowatt hours that will likely be in your program.
All right. So what's that about on with your fee
So our fee, that would be $90,000
for a year?
for a year.
And what, can you cover what you do for that fee? I
Yes.
mean, there's a list of things that you would do in this program, but if you could outline that for us,
Yeah.
or
I'll-
describe it for us.
Yeah, so the things that we would be providing for the town, so all the, assisting the committee with plan development, all local steps for review and approval, which includes, the public hearings, any information sessions you want to do ahead of town meeting or thereafter. So we'll be attending in person, answering any questions, however many you want to schedule. Once we're administering the program on your behalf, if they decide to move forward to town meeting, we'd be issuing the RFPs, working with suppliers on contract negotiations, advising the town on procurements as they come in. And there's also just ongoing sort of market monitoring. I mean, we're monitoring the market every day. We're looking for opportunities for buys. We often, once a town signs a contract, say it's initially for a couple of years or so, that doesn't mean we just put it to bed for 2 years. We're constantly looking for opportunities for the next buy. So it's just ongoing monitoring, market monitoring. We'll be active in all the commission dockets that may have an impact on the program, which could be, looking for new opportunities available for the program. Net metering is an ongoing issue. We're involved actively in the docket now, trying to make it possible for programs to actually have net metering customers participate in a more valuable way. There's the ongoing purchase of receivables docket that we're active in. And there's going to be more dockets coming as new energy opportunities come along. So, we'll be doing that on behalf of the town and our other clients in New Hampshire. Those are the things that top of mind.
So if I have a complaint, sorry, Tom.
Go ahead.
If I have a complaint, who do I call? Do I call the town?
No, so customer service would be entirely handled by us, and that's standard with every aggregator that you would use. You've also got folks moving into town as they get swept into the program. So every quarter, we're also monitoring to see who the new entrants are. We're getting that data from the utility. We're sending those folks opt-out notices. Again, with 10,000 homes, depending upon like the length of the contracts that we're looking at, every time that we do the opt-out notices, all that is being funneled through us and the suppliers to make sure that everybody that wants to be in the program is, anybody that isn't, they're left out. And then we handle, as Stuart was saying, the biggest portion, which is helping to figure out when the right time to buy is. So we've got, like I said, 80 communities down in Massachusetts. 1/10 of a cent per kilowatt hour is the standard going rate, if you will, for these programs. But if for instance, if I did the calculation for you on what ratepayers paid on the launch last April, at 7 cents multiplied by their usage would be millions of dollars rather than the 90,000. Just to give you like a comparison in terms of that. But that being said, all this is embedded in the rate charged to the ratepayers. So I just want to make it clear, that nothing is being charged to the town itself. This is only for active aggregations. So.
Right. It's Wendy.
Thank you. Actually, I have two questions based on this conversation. Stuart, you said that you monitor the markets every day. How often do you go out to bid?
We'll go out to bid when we think there's a good opportunity to make a buy. So it depends. It again, typically the programs are entering into term agreements, which can be as short as 6 months, but more typically a year or 2 years or longer. So it isn't as though we're issuing RFPs multiple times for community each year. It could be no more than once per year a formal RFP is issued.
And my other question was along the lines of Paul's question of who do people call. You guys don't own the poles and the wires. So in a snowstorm or something, a pole comes down, a tree comes down. What's the chain of command? How do people resolve that?
Right. No, thank you. So the Eversource would continue to be responsible for the poles and the wires. And so if the lights go out or there's an issue, residents, businesses would still call Eversource for those issues.
And then would they call Freedom for the electrical part, or once the poles are up, it's fixed?
Yeah, once the poles are up, it's fixed.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Only the supply related. So if like there was an issue on the invoice where, we said the aggregation was going to charge them 9 cents and they see that they got 10.5 cents, or they weren't converted from Eversource to the program. Those are the types of questions we fielded. Or someone says, hey, I opted in for the 50% renewable, but I'm at the base rate. Things of that nature we would handle.
So all of the transmission and the delivery of the power is handled by Eversource.
Right, the poles and wires.
The poles and wires and the actual delivery. So the fact that the wire comes into the house, and through your meter and whatnot.
Right, right. But
is
I'm
handled
just,
by Eversource.
we're just going to have to educate people in the community of what to do, the process, because even though we've changed the supplier, Eversource still owns the wires and the poles. So it's just an educational thing. It's not a problem.
Yeah, okay.
Just
I currently have a third-party supplier, and I've never dealt with them directly except to contract with them. Everything has been done through Eversource. When the lines come down, which they have,
Yeah.
they come out and fix it, or the Canadians do, or whoever, Janine,
My question is, do they come out in a timely manner?
Eversource, yeah.
Yes.
They
Okay.
treat me like every other customer because they're getting about half my bill for the delivery and maintenance of the power and stuff like that. They have no problem. They got out of the power supply business, and their business is distribution now. And so that's what they do. And they're, whether you're buying power from them as default, they go out and contract with one of these other companies for power that they deliver, and then they deliver it, and then they bill it through their default program. So it really doesn't have any impact at all on Eversource, whether you're buying power from them or buying power from somebody else. They're still in business to deliver power, and that's what they do. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I
right.
would like to, I've been on a third party direct energy for several years and and we've lost power from storms and stuff. And I was worried about, well, is ever going to source say, "Oh, well, they don't buy from us, so we're going to fix them last." That has not been our experience. But I did have a question under the statutory requirements. It says that the aggregation plan includes reliability. So if Eversource is fixing all the poles and the wires, what do you mean by reliability in this case?
Yeah, and the term reliability comes from the statute itself. And so the way they're sort of looking at reliability is how is the program working hard to make sure there's continuous contracts over the life of the program. So how do you make sure that, for example, the program itself isn't toggling back and forth between being active and inactive? Because it's disruptive for those customers who elect to remain with Eversource if big programs are jumping back and forth.
Andy?
So I just want to clarify, you get paid 1/10 of a cent for every kilowatt. So you don't get paid until we go under contract. So if we put this whole plan in place and we spend, and you come and you support us through our public hearings and education of the public, town meeting, you're not getting paid.
Correct. Yep.
It's not until we put that first contract in place. And so even if we put this program in place and Eversource is the cheapest energy supplier, we're just going to wait
Yes.
on the market. And
Yeah.
you're going to, that whole time, you're not going to get paid. Once we identify a contract that is going to save Merrimack residents money, that's when you start getting paid.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so there's a certain level of risk involvement, or at least upfront cost
Yeah.
that
Well,
you guys are offering as far as helping us to educate the public and do all the
Yeah.
opt-ins and opt-outs and.
But risk for them,
Right.
not
For
for,
them,
us.
right.
And just another clarifying point. We wouldn't be here if they hadn't come to the council and said, hey, this is something you should look at, right? And so for me, there's a certain value in that one, the town has no risk. They're taking the entire risk until we start saving money. And two, we wouldn't even be here had they not approached the council and said, hey, this is something you guys should go take a look at. So to me, there's value in that.
Just one more question, Bill.
Yeah, Paul.
So you said you've done this throughout, and I didn't go on Boston's website or anything
Sure.
of that sort. Is there a web page that people can go to as well? Is that what you're going to provide us, a web page with active link and all that other stuff?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I should have
To
mentioned
show the
that.
cost
Yeah.
of 100%, 75, 50, 0?
Everything everything that's going on in Merrimack specific aggregation will be detailed on that website. So it'll be a link and it'll have Merrimack CCA, and it'll give you your options that are currently in place, and then it'll also advise you if you're new to Merrimack and want to get information on the program. We post the Eversource rate there so that they also have that for comparison purposes, and they can enroll from that website as well. In addition to making a phone call to us.
Okay, and that's something that you maintain? But would be a Merrimack.
Yeah, Merrimack
website, if
specific.
you will,
Yeah.
And then we
right.
would link to it.
Yeah,
from
so
our
you basically
town
go to
site
like a
or
landing page. It would have, all of our communities that we serve, and then you click on your specific community, and then it would reroute you to
Would go to the
Merrimack in that case.
page. Okay. Okay. Yes, Karen.
So if a new person moves and they automatically are signed up with Merrimack, or they automatically signed up with Eversource?
So when they get their meter started, they're automatically with Eversource. We can't take on a new customer until they've been assigned an Eversource account. But once we get our quarterly updates from Eversource in terms of what are the new default customers, they would, if we put it in the plan, we could send them opt-out notices as soon as that account number is established. And then 30 days later, if we don't hear from them, they're into Merrimack's program. So the idea being is that when the legislature created this, is that Merrimack's program would become the default supplier now instead of Eversource being the go-to choice.
So, but you said they could sign up on the website. So if somebody came in new and got that link, they could sign up
Yeah,
right
there's
away.
multiple
They
ways to
wouldn't have
sign
to
up.
wait for you to
Correct.
send them an opt-out
Yeah.
notice. And if they signed up then, they're not waiting 30 days. They're just gonna, the next meter read, they would be
Correct.
switched in.
Correct.
Okay. Wendy?
Thank you. So I'm just still trying to get my head around this. So Freedom is just New Hampshire, correct?
Just New Hampshire for,
And how, oh, it only supplies New Hampshire? Or you're saying Freedom is New Hampshire and Massachusetts?
no, Massachusetts, Rhode Island.
Okay, all right. And
You don't supply them.
We're not suppliers. We're consultants, aggregation consultants.
okay. Okay. Wait a minute. So, and how long have you been serving New Hampshire?
We started in New Hampshire in 2006.
Could we see the performance numbers compared to Eversource since 2006?
For
Rates.
everybody.
Rates? No, for New Hampshire. For New
So
Hampshire and Eversource.
we're a consultant, so we're not the ones providing the rates. So we work with communities like Merrimack's a client of ours, Londonderry, Lebanon, Highliner Foods. So we're helping these customers go out and seek rates. So our first aggregation has not launched yet in New Hampshire. So we've got, I think, 8 towns now in New Hampshire, all in various stages. Some have already passed their approval process. In Massachusetts, we could give you some data on how our communities have done down there. It's important to note, though, when you're taking a look at those rates, a couple things to keep in mind. Massachusetts charges a lot more than the state of New Hampshire does for things like renewable energy credits. So there's about a 3 or 4 cent delta in that marketplace just crossing the border. And we did quite well the last 2 winters. And I wouldn't use that as a forecast of how we'll do going forward. Not to say that we can't save money for Merrimack, but we had aggregations in Massachusetts that were paying about 9 cents a kilowatt hour while the utility was at 36. So, that can happen, but just don't use that as, we expect to save, that type of
Performance
money.
Doesn't indicate future performance.
Exactly.
So, and I just want to clarify. You said that the first aggregation has not launched yet in New Hampshire?
Correct. We have not launched any of our aggregations.
Thank
And
you.
the reason for that is because the purchase of receivable rules have not been finalized yet. So just a quick crash course in purchase of receivables. This is a program that the legislature passed under HB 315 a couple years ago. It's a program by which the utility guarantees the receivables for a community choice aggregation program such as this. Why is that important? It's important because when the suppliers bid on these large aggregations, they have no ability to check the credit of all of the customers participating in that town. And that can be kind of have a freezing effect in the marketplace because they're kind of going into this big dark room of credit. Are we getting good customers, bad customers? We're not sure. And because the statute was written as a universal access program, we had to follow up with a trailer bill in HB 315 to institute purchase of receivables, which means the utility has to guarantee the credit for every participant in the program. And the utility in turn charges the supplier a small fee for the purchase of those receivables, hence the program. And so those rules have not been finalized yet. And as a result of that, there are only CPCNH as their own supplier, and then I believe First Point Power are the only 2 suppliers in the state right now that are willing to take on aggregations. So we've given our communities the choice if they wanted to move forward, but advised them that it wouldn't really be a bid format in that they'd only have one supplier that would be responding to it. And so Hampton and others have chosen to hold off for a little bit.
So going back to our timeline here, we're trying to put together a plan that we want to put before the voters. The urgency right now is to get it onto the April ballot. If we don't get it into the April ballot, we're going to wait another year until we get to the April 2025 ballot. And so we're trying to see if we can accomplish this and move forward. We want to do the right thing. We want to be careful about it. We don't want to just throw something out there, but it does require approval from the town at town meeting. And so we have to convince people that this is a good idea. Once we've done that, once we have a plan and the plan's been approved by the voters, then we work together with our vendor consultants to send that plan to the PUC. That plan has to be approved by the PUC before we can do anything. Once that happens, then I believe we start thinking about getting quotes, getting RFPs.
Yes.
And at that point, we can look at it and decide whether or not it's beneficial. I mean, if the RFPs come in at 20 cents and Eversource is at 18, that's not beneficial to us to go forward. So we could choose to delay 6 months or a year or whatever before we actually go out. And we could go out and get another RFP at some later date when people, our consultants, are watching and have a feel that maybe it's beneficial to go ahead and do something now. The other option I think that we would have would be the length of term that we might choose to go into. We wouldn't be limited. I think I heard that the Community Power Coalition goes out every 6 months. We could choose to go with a longer contract if we chose to. But again, we're in a contract, right? So we'd be buying in for a certain amount of time.
Yeah, and
So
I think CPCNH does do the 6-month increments, and that stays kind of with the utility, and that gives them insight in terms of what's the price to compare. So there's advantages from the savings perspective on that. The issue is, and we'll have to make this decision when we get to this point, but depending upon the marketplace that you're in, if you're always following the utility, that means you're somewhat riding that volatility in the marketplace as well, and so I think it's absolutely crucial, when we start, that we wait for things to line up so we have a healthy savings rate for our residents in Merrimack. But we can't guarantee savings all the time, and that's kind of the issue with the longer term contracts. But there's a give and take on both, so.
Right. If we had gone into a contract in 22, we could be in trouble now because they're dropping
Precisely.
rates right now and
Precisely.
stuff like that. So
But the people have the option to get out.
to jump out of the program.
Correct. That is one element to this that's very attractive, is that just like Eversource, they can come and go as they please. So they do have that option.
They come and go at the meter read date. I mean, they can't
Correct.
go any time of the
Correct.
but they do have that monthly opportunity to switch in or out.
Yeah.
Which is part of I guess the sales to the public to explain that it's hard to lose from the public's perspective. Janine?
Thank you. You said First Point, and what was the other?
So CPCNH is their own supplier.
Okay.
So just those two are the only ones in the market right now taking bidding on aggregations, if you will.
Okay, thank you.
Paul?
Tom talked about it a little bit. So the PUC, so you handle all the PUC and you go up and testify in front of them and everything else? And
Yeah, all the regulatory. It typically, when we submit our aggregation plans, we've gotten a number of these through already through the approval process. So we have a recipe for what works. It typically takes about 60 days to get those approvals, but we handle all of that. And if you take a look at how these programs evolve in other markets, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, typically the regulatory burden increases, doesn't decrease. And so Massachusetts used to be like we are in New Hampshire, where you submit your plan, you get it back approved or denied in 60 days, and it was a relatively fast process. Massachusetts has gotten so bad now that it takes 2 years after you submit your plan to get a verdict from them as to whether you're approved or denied. And I just want to point out that the additional burden there is, even if your program has launched in Massachusetts and you just want them to make an amendment, a
small
change,
change. Yeah.
you have to go through that process. And that's one of the reasons that when we put our plans together, we try to be a little open-ended in terms of what our plans are. We don't want to be too restrictive in terms of what our thought process is going to be, because these changes will inevitably come to New Hampshire, and we don't have to go back and say, Mother, may I, each and every time we want to go and change a certain aspect of our plan.
Okay. Any other thoughts or questions? So at some point, we need to kind of go through, this is what I would propose we use as a basis, which we received from Freedom Energy and Colonial. Basically a boilerplate plan, but it has a lot of good stuff in it. And so I think we need to kind of go through it and make sure we're comfortable with it and whether we have any questions or problems.
And can I realize this is a template. Has it been used before?
Yeah, this is this is the template plan that we used, for example, in the towns of Lincoln and Hampton. So and both have gone through the entire process, PUC approved, so, yeah. And just to jump off something that Bart mentioned is, as you'll see in sort of the table of contents in the very opening page, you know, you see the introduction, you see goals and components, and then you see statutory requirements. So in other words, all 15 sections under statutory requirements, those are just simply designed to meet the statutory requirements. So as Bart mentioned, the way I think for the committee and the town to look at this is sort of your constitution, and it intentionally lacks specificity because you want to maintain flexibility in terms of how you want to operate your program going forward. And so the sort of, if I may say, sort of the area to get sort of unique in terms of what the town might want to consider would be in the goals and components section. But again, I'd urge a little bit of caution not to get too specific. And it's what really matters as the program is up and running, and as you're starting to select products and those priorities may change over time. It's more the ongoing information, the ongoing get-together sessions you're having with residents, the information that we're plastering on the website and through the towns. That's where it really matters in terms of transparency and getting people engaged and energized. This is sort of a regulatory document.
Right, but this is what we have to present.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
get approved
Yep.
by the town before you can go to the PUC to get it approved,
Right.
before we can go to, yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, we need to at least make sure that we have the basics covered in there. And again, I kind of agree that we want to keep it as flexible as we can.
Right.
Because we're going to be in constant contact, if you will, maybe not daily, but certainly, you know, quarterly
Right.
or something like that with you folks to constantly be reviewing and understanding what we're doing and to let you know what the town's looking for and what you're seeing as far as the future in the energy market. You guys are a lot closer to it than I am, and stuff like that. So from the logistics of the stuff, the different regulatory stuff, I agree. It didn't look like there was very much we could argue with out there. And certainly as long as the goals and components meet what we're looking for, I think it's the right track. So, at this point, I guess, we need to do a review of this, give everybody an opportunity to have looked at it and talk about it. I'm not sure where else we go from here. We ought to plan some additional meetings throughout the month, so that we can have a chance to go through it and discuss it. Does anybody have any other questions or comments or thoughts that they want to bring up relative to the whole CAC plan, program, whatever, before we try and figure out when we should meet again and how? Does anybody from the public, Leo or Karen or anybody, have anything else they want to add to what they're hearing us talking about? Mary Beth?
I have a question under the funding section. The second paragraph, right, it says that the town could provide a program operational fee, and maybe we get a little bit of money that maybe in this paragraph says it could help to reimburse the town for costs incurred specifically and solely in support of the program, such as expenses for consumer awareness. So maybe it'd be signs or educational sessions or whatever. I've been in other community power meetings where it has been discussed that money could also be used for energy related projects of the town, like maybe the town buying a heat pump or putting solar panels on one of the town buildings or something like that. Do I understand correctly from these other?
Yeah, you have that option. It's your program. So if the town elects to put a couple tenths of a cent per kilowatt hour onto the supply rate, you could have an EV charging fund. You could have an LED streetlight fund. These are choices that you as Merrimack could make for your program, and we would certainly execute on that for you if that's what you wanted to do.
But again, not something you want to put in the plan. That's,
I wouldn't commit specifics to the plan because you might change. One year it's an EV charging fund. The next year, it's an efficiency fund.
Right, but right now it doesn't mention, it only mentions expenses about consumer awareness. So I was just looking maybe for an example or something, other costs that are energy related or whatever, because this specific example in here only says like expenses for consumer awareness. So it made me wonder if that was even possible anymore. That's all.
So like Bart said, that's definitely possible, and if that's of potential interest for the town, we can sort of modify the wording to
Okay.
make it more expansive, yeah.
Okay.
And just where I'm sitting here right now, I wouldn't encourage that. At this point, I see this program as an effort to try and reduce rates for the ratepayers. We already tack on a little bit to every car registration to help pay for paving the roads. And somehow that feels like a tax. And
Well, right, but what I'm hoping for, if we save them 4 kilowatts an hour to begin with, what's 3.7 kilowatts an hour, I mean cents per
Cents per
kilowatts hour
kilowatt hour.
versus 4, and then the town might get $90,000 a year to do something, just something for us to consider,
Yep.
you know.
As long, we could put it in the, I guess what the question is we can put it in the plan, but we don't have to act on it.
Right,
Exactly. You're giving yourself future permission to do so. Yeah.
So what we're looking at is a massive edit of this document, correct?
We can do a massive edit of it. If there's something that you feel like we need to do. We
As
ought
a
to
tech
definitely talk
writer, I
about
have a
it.
lot to say about this document.
Okay.
I don't know how you want to get started or, I mean, just start with page 1. First of all, I mean, number of pages would be nice. If we could all agree that the page with introduction is number 1.
Yeah. With the introduction or with the cover sheet? Or the introduction?
The one with the
Okay.
introduction is page number 1, so we can make reference to it.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. You want to start talking about specifics?
Um,
that-
I mean, oh, yeah, I'm on still. I would typically go through this line by line. That's the way as a tech writer. So, as an example, on the 3rd paragraph, the last sentence, it contains required information on the structure, operations, rate setting, and policies and procedures of the town's program. That doesn't match the outline that's in the table of contents. And I mean, it makes it Bush League, you know, I mean, it should be matching. Down at the bottom, it says that the consultant will develop contract terms that provide exceptional consumer protection. Define exceptional. I mean, that's just a throwaway word. I realize at the end of that sentence, they say price security, clearly defined terms of service, no exit penalties, and multiple options to handle. So I have a different look on it. I mean, as a tech writer for Digital Equipment Corporation, I'm trained to sort of catch these things. So that's what I will be bringing to the table.
Okay. And I don't disagree with you in general, but what I think I hear from our consultants and is to try to keep this as open as we can. So instead of getting ultra specific about what is being provided, try and say.
I totally get
protecting
that,
the
and I
consumers.
understand that, but I'm just trying to make it professional, that's all. And something that we can easily find information in.
And one other thought is that if we change it too much, because we're trying to make it professional, it's going to go for a complete review by a PUC, where they've already reviewed this several times, and they're fairly happy with it. So
Understood.
we just need to keep all that in mind. So should we plan a meeting next week and come back, or do we want to?
I think we plan my personal opinion is we plan a meeting for next week, Monday or Tuesday, or Monday of next week,
Monday or Tuesday or Monday?
or Monday.
Or Tuesday?
To come back with everybody gets a chance over the weekend to review the document, put their edits down, questions, whatever, down on the document, and then we come up and Monday we hit the ground running. This was really supposed to be an introductory meeting, getting stuff going, getting the word out there. And then we hit the ground running on the 8th or 9th with the plan and starting to go through that plan document and reviewing it and having questions answered or if we have questions asked. That would be my opinion.
Yes. Wendy?
Excuse me, do you want us to review the entire document, or do you want to split it up into a smaller piece?
Well, that's a great question, and part of it is how many meetings do we want to try and schedule in advance here at this point in order to try to come to some conclusion by the end of the month. If we tried, I guess there's 4 Tuesdays between now and the end of the month. I don't want Monday, so I'm pushing for Tuesday, in case you didn't notice.
That's why I pushed for Monday, because you wanted Mondays before.
No, I didn't want Mondays before. I have meetings Monday nights.
Tuesdays are fine, I just.
You know, I've read the document, and I believe there's cosmetic changes. I don't think there's going to be huge changes, and I think that this can be done fairly quickly.
Okay. So you want to divide it into maybe 2 sections or something, or?
I think that would be nice. Let's go number these pages.
Yes,
Who put this together? Who wrote this?
I believe.
This is our
Colonial and Freedom.
document, yeah, the Freedom
And-
Colonial.
Is this the same document you use for other towns? Just change the name?
I believe we use this for Hampton and I believe Lincoln as well.
And did Hampton or Lincoln have an issue with any of the words?
They were approved by the PUC, so as introduced.
Okay, thank you.
So do we want to schedule something for the 9th then?
Yeah, there are
At 7 PM?
14 pages. So the
Yeah, that's
9th,
14.
7
yes.
p.m.
Yeah. So if we go through maybe funding or through operations on the
What
1st, on the
page is
9th.
that?
Number 7, operations. We go up through 7
Go up through 7 and then take the rest of it up next.
following week.
Number 7
We
is
do 1 through 7.
No,
We
I
do-
was thinking section 7, but if I don't,
Oh,
I didn't
yeah,
count the pages,
my page
so.
7 is different.
Operations number 7.
Oh. No. No, wait a minute. So operations 7.
Well, we could go through 6 and that goes through section 6. Huh?
No, introduction is page 1. So,
1, 2,
okay. Ah, brilliant. Okay. So up to the bottom of page 8.
Yes, operations number 7.
Right.
up to operations.
Correct.
Right. So it would be sections, introduction through 6.
Yes.
Okay. That's fair.
We'll get page numbers on this document.
Do we have this document?
Yeah, I have this
in text
document.
form? We
Yes,
can-
I do. I think so.
I think you have. We can.
If not, I have capabilities. I have technology
You
on my
have
side.
technology, a PDF to Word doc
Yeah,
conversion.
exactly.
Yeah.
I have one of those too, but
All right.
um,
So we're meeting Tuesday the 9th. Do we have anything else set up? (5:30 to 6:30 in this room, so.
So we'll do 7 o'clock.
on the 9th.
Just a reminder, if you're gonna talk, make sure you press your button. Push.
Okay.
And then while
You can just leave the button on unless they come out and complain about too much echoing at this point.
and do we want to schedule for the 16th, the following week?
Yeah, I
just
think
in
so.
case?
I think we want to go ahead and schedule that for the, hopefully for the remainder of the document.
7 through end.
Yeah. At 7 o'clock again.
Yeah, 7 p.m. That
You
works
have
for,
That
meetings every
conflicts with
Tuesday
a historical society meeting. Historical
In the
society,
evening?
Yeah.
Oh.
So the 16th conflicts with a historical society meeting. I mean, it's not mandatory that I go. I do enjoy them, but
Okay.
if I'm the only one that can't come, I'll.
Yeah, on the 16th, I've got another public hearing I have to be at. And
Okay.
Okay.
That's not a
do
good.
we want to do the 23rd then? Can you could do the 23rd.
Woo, that's,
Well, I'm gonna,
Getting it
I'd
close.
rather
No, we-
either
th-
do the
that-
15th
that
or the
week-
19th. I
The
mean,
15th is, the 15th, the town
Oh,
hall's
that's-
closed, that's the holiday.
Okay, that's a holiday.
And then the 19th is the Friday, and
how about Wednesday?
where we got
Town
meetings,
council meeting
Oh, sure,
we
sure.
got
at
budgets,
6:30.
yeah. We got budgets on Wednesday and Thursday, so the other day would be the 19th,
How about the end of next week?
The 12th?
would be the
Yeah.
12th. I'm not around.
We could do that, and then the 23rd, maybe, if we need to follow up.
Could do that.
Do what?
If we do the 19th at 7 o'clock Friday, and then if we did need another meeting after that, maybe follow up the 23rd, Tuesday of the following week. Yeah, I know.
What?
No, just the town council meets a lot
Oh.
this month.
Oh.
But-
Mm.
Just about,
So
yeah.
the 23rd also?
It gets a little tight. over
As
none
a
of the room
resident, though,
over
I
there.
appreciate how much work you're doing, and I really appreciate the fact that you wanted to try to fit this in 2024.
Mhm.
So,
Anything to save the residents.
And ourselves.
Yeah,
Um,
we could do the 23rd as the final, and then if that's final, then
I think
we
that's,
can move forward with the
So we're,
public hearings.
we're tracking the 9 and the 19th? Is that what I'm
Right
hearing?
now, 9 and 19.
9 and 19th.
Okay.
So 9 up to page 8,
Yep.
8 to 15 is the 19th. And then the 23rd is any final words?
We're gonna be spending Friday evening together. It better be fun.
It's town property, so I can't bring beer, but
So I guess, even though we're saying we're only gonna go up to 1 through 6 on the 9th, if we get in a roll and if people read the whole document, I think, if it's all cosmetic, it's not that hard of a read.
No,
I
it's
read it
not.
Right.
before.
right.
So I think potentially we could be done on the 9th if we go through this whole thing. It's been passed by the PUC twice already. It seems, trust me, here, this is a competitor's document. I went through it, flipped through it, read it a little bit, and it's basically says the same language that's in here. So, I think, personally, I think that we potentially can get this thing done in one night.
of going
If we
through it.
stay from 7 to 9, 2 hours, we put a 2-hour limit on it, we go as far as we can go in 2 hours.
I'm good with that.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
we see
And
where
then
we're
we-
at 9. If we're close to the end, we
I'll get my red
just
pen
keep
and my
pushing.
Sharpie out.
Okay.
we
Do
just
do
keep
you want
pushing.
a text version? A Word document
I can
version
get you, I
instead
can
of?
give you, I thought I sent out the Word
Yeah, you
document
did.
version.
Oh,
Yeah,
you
that's,
might have.
yeah, you,
I mean, just in case you wanted to
to make the actual,
to make the edits
changes
and
my-
type it up
so
or
I guess
something that
somebody's
you
gonna
want
have
or
to,
something, I
yeah.
don't know,
well,
whatever you want. If you have
I
it
don't know.
already, then do it or don't. It's
Okay.
up to you.
yeah, okay,
Okay.
okay.
Hmm?
Track changes.
Well,
Track changes, yeah.
who is responsible for the changes to this document? Is that you guys? So, yeah, they should be tracking it, not me.
No, I'm just saying if we have changes, they're the ones who wrote the document, but
Yeah, how do you envision doing this? I mean, were you gonna come in verbally and, I'm just trying from point
I'm-
of efficiency, that's all.
I'm going to mark this up with a red pen and a highlighter.
Okay.
And that's the way I edit.
Okay.
So, and then I suppose I could pass it off to you.
Okay,
And, yeah,
Sure.
I mean, or a copy of
Okay.
it anyway.
Yep.
then
Okay.
all we'd have to do is, if that's the case, all we'd have to do is get it for the next meeting, read it, make sure the changes are accurate.
Okay. So if we can, we'll maybe skip the 19th and go to the 23rd.
No, I don't think we should skip.
You don't think so? Okay.
Okay.
You never know what the snow's gonna do, huh?
True.
We're
Okay.
not getting any snow.
So, no? Good. Andy just pointed it out. Janine, did you have something you wanted to add?
No, I'm just curious. If it's already been approved by the PUC, why does it need changes?
We're gonna review it and discuss it and see if we think the cosmetics and whatnot need to be cleaned up, I think is the idea, just to get everybody on board and happy with it.
Make it more professional, make it reflective of Merrimack.
And the other thing too is once we go over it like that, we have, if somebody asks one of us a question about number 7, we won't be like, we'll be able to answer those questions.
Okay? Anybody else? Bart?
Just one quick question on the changes. Would you be able to scan those to us ahead of time so we could just have it prepared for everybody, or?
Well, we're gonna discuss the changes as a group.
Okay,
So rather than
Yeah.
having one person decide the changes or having you get 5 different copies of changes.
Okay.
So we'll get it to, we'll talk about it on the 9th, probably go through the whole thing,
Yeah.
Okay.
compile it all and get it to you.
And I'll
And-
put it on the TV behind us.
Okay.
So if Stuart brings his computer, we can get it up on the screen behind
Okay.
me.
And then just on the for the next meeting, I'll be in Houston, but Stuart will be here. So
Okay,
all right.
sounds good. So we'll be back here at this location, 7 o'clock on the 9th. Okay?
Alrighty.
If there's no other questions, we'll adjourn this committee meeting.
Motion to adjourn?
Second it.
Motion by Andy, seconded by Wendy. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? 5-0. Great, thank you very much. Thank you, folks.